Wife tests husband. I thought I was in control until the day I saw the hidden camera record something I wasn't prepared to feel. I've been married to Ricardo for 8 years. Businessman, handsome, millionaire, and in everyone's eyes, the perfect husband. But after he started traveling too much, the dry messages and long excuses began to eat away at me. I told myself it was paranoia, until I created a plan. Scene 1. There's a red light blinking in the corner of the living room. Small, discreet, hidden behind a fake plant I bought at one of those decoration supermarkets that sell cheap happiness. The light is from a camera. I installed it. I know how this sounds. I know it seems like something from a bad movie, the kind you watch dying of secondhand embarrassment, hoping the protagonist wakes up before ruining everything. But the truth is, we only judge until we're in that place. Until we feel that cold emptiness in our stomach when he says, "I arrived safely," and doesn't send anything else for the rest of the night. Ricardo, my husband for 8 years, businessman, handsome, millionaire, everything that seems too good when you see it from the outside. But inside, in recent months, something started to rot. Slowly. Like fruit you forget in the fruit bowl, and only notice when the smell takes over the kitchen. He traveled more. Messages became dry. Excuses too long. And me? I started collecting clues like someone gathering loose coins in their purse, without knowing exactly what for, but thinking that one day they'll pay for something. I didn't want to be that woman. The one who suspects, who watches, who loses sleep checking flight times and looking for strange perfume on shirt collars. But fear does that to us. It transforms what we were into what we swore we'd never be. That's how I got the idea. The one that still shames me. Hiring a beautiful, young adult housekeeper to test if he would resist. It seemed simple, like pressing a red button just to see what happens. But red buttons are never simple. Red buttons always explode something, and it exploded. Just not the way I expected. Scene 2. There's a photo of us in the hallway. It was taken in Napa Valley, on one of those golden late afternoons that looks like a wine commercial scene, when the light hits from the side and transforms everything into promise. We're smiling, holding hands, him in a blue shirt I always thought brought out his eyes, and me in that white dress I only wore once. The frame is white, simple, minimalist, like everything in our house. I remember the day we hung that photo. Ricardo held the frame with both hands, measured with the tape measure 3 times before marking the wall with pencil, because he's like that, detail-oriented to a fault, incapable of leaving something crooked even if no one else would notice. When he finished nailing it, he took 2 steps back, tilted his head, adjusted it 0.5 centimeter to the left. "Done," he said, satisfied. And then he pulled me by the waist, pressed his forehead against mine and whispered, "We're going to have a beautiful life." I believed it. With every cell in my body, I believed it. And we did. At least on paper. At least for those looking from the outside. Our apartment was the kind of place that appears in decoration magazines. Light furniture, well-kept plants, natural light coming through large windows, that constant smell of lavender detergent that comes when you change the sheets twice a week. Everything in its place, everything clean, everything beautiful. It looked like a movie set where nothing bad happens. People said goals when they saw our photos on Instagram. They commented with heart emojis, fire, applause. "You're perfect," they wrote, and I responded with, "Thank you," and more hearts, as if perfection were something we could achieve with good lighting and the right filter. But behind the photo, behind the wide smile and intertwined hands, something was already beginning to crack. Slowly, like glass that receives pressure every day until one morning, without warning, it shatters. Ricardo woke up early. Always at 6, even on weekends, because he said success doesn't wait for anyone to wake up. He made coffee, strong, no sugar, and left me a ready cup on the counter with a note stuck on the refrigerator magnet. "Good morning, love." Sometimes with a heart emoji, sometimes without, and it was in that sometimes without that I started to sink. Because real love isn't just big gestures. It's not just trips to Napa Valley or expensive dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants. It's the constancy of small gestures. It's the emoji you put without thinking because you still feel it. It's the good morning kiss that lasts half a second longer because you wanted it to. And when these gestures start to fail, we feel it before we understand. The body knows. The chest tightens. Breathing becomes shorter. I remember a specific night. We were lying in bed, our king-size bed with Egyptian cotton white sheets that he insisted on buying, each on our own side, a respectful distance in the middle, as if there were an invisible line dividing the mattress. I looked at the ceiling, at the shadows of leaves from the tree outside dancing on the plaster, and tried to remember when was the last time we made plans together that weren't about bills, renovations, or mandatory social commitments. I tried to remember when was the last time he looked at me as if I were the only person in the room. I couldn't remember. And that hurt more than any fight, because fights have sound, have beginning and end, have a chance of resolution. But silence. Silence is a type of violence that leaves no visible mark, just an emptiness that grows slowly until it occupies everything. I turned to his side and whispered, "Do you still love me?" He wasn't sleeping. I knew by his breathing, but he pretended he was. And that night, lying next to the man I swore to spend my entire life with, I felt completely alone. That's when fear truly entered. Not the fear that he was cheating on me. The fear that he had already left emotionally, even while being by my side every night. The fear that I was holding on to a marriage that only existed in appearance, like that photo in the hallway, beautiful, framed, but frozen in the past. Scene 3. The first strange thing was the phone password. He changed it. Without warning, without apparent reason, without that casual conversation couples have when they change something important, he just changed it. I noticed on a Friday night. We had ordered Japanese food. We always ordered Japanese on Fridays. It was our tradition, one of the last remnants of us that still remained. We were sitting on the couch, each with our phone in hand, scrolling through feeds in silence, like two people who share the same space but live in parallel dimensions. He got up to go to the bathroom, left his phone on the coffee table, screen facing up. A notification blinked. I couldn't see who it was from, just the blue glow cutting through the air of the room. My heart did that weird jump, the one you feel when you're about to do something wrong but have already decided you're going to do it anyway. I picked up his phone. Not because I wanted to. Not because I was the type of woman who snoops through her husband's phone. But because I needed to. Because doubt had already become an itch under my skin that wouldn't stop burning. I typed the password, the one I always knew, the date of our wedding anniversary, 6 numbers that meant everything to us. The screen shook. Incorrect password. I tried again, thinking I had typed it wrong. Incorrect password. My stomach dropped. You know when your body understands before your head. When the air gets heavier, vision blurs at the edges, and you feel like you're falling even while sitting. It was exactly that. I put the phone back in place, hands shaking, just as I heard the flush and the bathroom door opening. I pretended I was on my own phone, pretended everything was fine. He came back, sat down, picked up his phone without even looking at me. I waited a few minutes, breathed deeply 3 times, like those meditation techniques that never really work when you need them most, and asked, with the most casual voice possible, "Did you change your phone password?" He looked at me as if I had just spoken Mandarin. That look of someone processing whether the question is innocent or a disguised accusation. "I did," he answered, too quickly. "Security, system update asked for it. You know how it is, these data protection things." Ready answer, too clean, no hesitation, as if he had rehearsed it. I smiled, nodded my head, swallowed the lump rising in my throat. Pretended to believe, because it was easier to pretend than to confront, because if I pressed, I would have to hear more lies, or worse, I would have to hear the truth. And that night, I still wasn't ready for either, but the password was just the beginning. Then came the trips, work meetings that lasted entire weekends, hotels whose names he never mentioned, landscape photos he posted without location tags, calls he answered leaving the room with the excuse that the client was difficult and needed concentration. Once, he came home with a shirt wrinkled in a strange way, as if it had been folded hastily inside a suitcase. I asked if he had changed at the airport. He said he had spilled coffee on the plane and needed to change in the bathroom. It made sense. Everything always made sense. Too much sense. I started observing. Not on purpose, but as a reflex, like someone developing a sixth sense when something is out of place. I noted times in my phone's notepad, checked tickets, looked for hotel names in the shared credit card history. I became an amateur detective of a story I didn't want to star in. And the more I looked, the more I found silences, holes in the narrative, blank spaces he filled with well-constructed excuses. It was during that time I heard about the fidelity test. A friend mentioned it jokingly at a party, talking about someone he knew who had hired someone to test his girlfriend. Everyone thought it was absurd. We laughed. "How crazy," I said, taking another sip of wine. "If it gets to that point, it's over, right?" But the idea stuck. It didn't leave my head, like a seed that falls on fertile ground and starts sprouting even when you don't want it to. I spent nights awake thinking about it, imagining how it would work. Would he fall for it? Would he resist? And if he fell, what would I do with that information? And the most frightening question of all, did I really want to know? Because there are truths we seek just to confirm what we already feel. And there are truths that destroy everything when they finally appear. A week after that party, on a sleepless dawn fueled by chamomile tea and anxiety, I grabbed my laptop, opened an anonymous tab in the browser, and typed, "How to hire fidelity test." And that's how, with one click and a decision made at 3 a.m, I pushed the first domino. I just didn't know that when it fell, it would knock down an entire row I didn't even know existed. Scene 4. In the following days, I tried to convince myself I was going crazy. "Stop thinking nonsense," I told myself out loud in the shower, as if hearing my own voice gave more weight to the lie. I repeated mantras while washing dishes. "He loves me. We're fine. It's just a phase." But mantras don't erase evidence. One night, he came home late, and I pretended to be sleeping. I heard him taking off his shoes, the sound of the belt falling on the floor, the shower water running. Everything so common, so ours, so false. When he lay down, he turned to my side and placed his hand on my shoulder. "Are you awake?" I didn't answer. Because if I answered, I would have to ask. And if I asked, I would have to listen. And I still wasn't ready to listen. Denial is a dark room where we lock ourselves because inside, at least, it doesn't hurt as much. But there comes a time when the door opens by itself. Scene 5. I met Ricardo on a rainy day. I was leaving work, without an umbrella. And he crossed the street just to give me his jacket. Didn't even know me, just saw a wet woman and decided that was his problem too. "Keep it," he said, smiling like someone who doesn't expect anything in return. I laughed, found it absurd, found it beautiful. I returned the jacket a week later, washed, folded, with a note. "Thank you for the gesture. People like you are rare." He replied, "Then let's be rare together." And we were. For a while, in the beginning, he was attentive, present, funny. He sent messages in the middle of the day just to say he was thinking of me. He waited for me at the building entrance with coffee and cheese bread. He laughed at my bad jokes. He made me believe that love could be simple. But nothing that's real is simple forever. Remembering this now hurts, because it wasn't a lie. It was truth that spoiled, like milk that sours inside the closed refrigerator. And the worst part of a betrayal isn't the act itself. It's knowing that one day it was real love. Scene 6. I found the housekeeper online. Discreet profile, professional, not much personal information, beautiful, young, exactly the type that would attract attention even in a uniform. I sent a message. "I need someone for a delicate situation. Can I explain?" She responded quickly. "You can." I explained. Without beating around the bush. Said I needed to test my husband, that she would be too kind, too close, and that I would pay well. She accepted, without judgment, professional to the end. I installed the cameras that same night. 2, one in the living room, hidden behind the plant, and another in the hallway, near the kitchen, small, almost invisible, like secrets we keep inside our chest. The next day, she arrived. Discreet uniform, light makeup, polite smile. "Good morning, ma'am," she said to me. "Good morning," I replied, and pretended this was normal. Ricardo barely looked at her, waved from the table where he was working, went back to his laptop, and that was it. For the first 3 days, nothing happened. He kept his distance, responded with monosyllables when she asked something, and I started to feel ridiculous. But on the 4th day, she got closer, and I held my breath. Scene 7. I was at work when the phone vibrated. A discreet notification, almost innocent. Movement detected. Living room camera. My heart jumped before my brain processed. That kind of physical reaction that happens before you understand why, like when you trip and your body already prepares for the fall. I looked around the office. Nobody paying attention. Everyone immersed in screens, meetings, urgent emails, lives running on autopilot. And there I was, holding my phone with both hands, shaking as if I were about to open a test result letter that could change everything. I breathed deeply 3 times. 1, 2, 3, as if oxygen could prepare my heart for what was coming. I opened the app. The screen loaded slowly, an eternity of 2 seconds. And then the image appeared. Our living room, filmed from above. Discreet angle, natural light coming through the window. Everything seemed normal at first glance, but then I saw her. The housekeeper. Standing near the table where Ricardo was working, he was sitting, laptop open, headphones hanging on his neck, his posture tense but focused, as it always was when he was in the middle of some important negotiation. He didn't seem to have noticed she was there, but she had noticed him. I saw her approach, slowly, calculated, like someone testing the water temperature before getting in. She straightened some papers on his desk, papers that didn't need straightening, and leaned in a little, just a little. Enough for any man to notice. My stomach twisted. Ricardo raised his head. I saw the exact moment he registered her proximity. His expression changed, almost imperceptible. But I had known that face for 8 years. I knew every micro-expression, every eyebrow movement, and that was discomfort. He took the headphones off his neck and placed them on the table. He pushed the chair back, creating distance. The sound of dragging on the wooden floor came muffled through the camera audio, but I felt that sound as if I were inside the room. "Do you need something?" His voice was polite, but cold. The kind of cold you feel when someone invades your space without permission. She smiled. That light, innocent way that could be confused with kindness if you didn't know the context. "I just wanted to know if you need anything else," she said, her voice soft, smooth. "Coffee, perhaps? Water?" My fingers squeezed the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Ricardo shook his head. "No, thank you," he replied, short, direct. But she didn't leave. She stood there as if waiting for something, and I felt the air in the room, even being miles away, become dense, charged, like when a storm is about to fall and everything becomes still before the first thunder. She took another step, just one. But it was enough to close the space he had created. And then she placed her hand on the edge of the table. Long fingers, clear nails, casual but clearly purposeful gesture. She tilted her head slightly, let her hair slip from her shoulder, and said something I couldn't hear properly through the audio. My heart was beating so loud I could hear the pulse in my ears. Thump, 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 like a drum announcing the fall. Ricardo stood up, not slowly, not hesitantly. He stood up at once, firmly, and took 2 steps back, creating a physical distance impossible to ignore. The air stopped. I stopped breathing, and then he spoke. "Excuse me." His voice was hard, not aggressive, but firm, the kind that leaves no room for interpretation. She gave a low laugh, nervous, like someone trying to smooth over the moment. "Sorry, I was just... respect my house." The tone rose. He didn't shout, but the firmness was a wall. He crossed his arms, and for the first time in months, I saw in him that defensive posture I knew from other situations, difficult meetings, tense negotiations, moments when he needed to make it clear he wasn't going to give in. And then came the phrase that broke me inside. "Respect my wife." Silence. A heavy silence, thick, like a wet blanket. She lowered her head, murmured an almost inaudible, "Sorry," and left the room hurriedly. I heard the sound of her footsteps disappearing down the hallway, fast, embarrassed. Ricardo stood still for a few seconds, looking at the door, breathing visibly more accelerated, shoulders tense. Then he passed his hand over his face, let the air out slowly, like someone who just got rid of something heavy, and returned to the chair. I closed the app, pressed my forehead on the cold office desk, and cried. Not because he had fallen, but because he hadn't. I expected, God, how I expected, that he would fail. Because if he failed, I would be right. My suspicion would make sense. My paranoia would be justified. And all the guilt I carried for having set up that theater of lies could be thrown on his back. But he defended me. And now the guilt was only mine. Shame came like a cold wave. Not the shame of being betrayed, but the shame of having doubted. Of having set a trap. Hoping he would bite. Of having filmed my own marriage as if it were a cheap reality show episode. I wanted to be the victim, and I discovered that, in that moment, I was the villain. I stayed there, sitting in the office bathroom, because yes, I ran from the desk before anyone saw me crying, with my phone still in hand, the black screen reflecting my swollen and red face. I tried to convince myself I had done the right thing, that testing was legitimate when you feel something is wrong, that every woman has the right to protect her own heart. But none of these excuses erased the knot in my stomach. Because deep down, I knew. I always knew. Testing someone doesn't reveal who the person is. It reveals who you became when fear takes over. And in that bathroom, with fluorescent light crackling on the ceiling and the smell of cheap soap in the air, I finally understood. The problem was never him. The problem was that I no longer trusted myself. Scene 8. A week passed. A whole week since I watched Ricardo defend me through the hidden camera, and I still couldn't look at him properly. I kept avoiding eye contact when he entered the room, forcing empty smiles during breakfast, pretending to be focused on my phone when he tried to start a conversation. Because every time I looked at him, I saw the phrase echoing in my head, "Respect my wife." And the shame came back, heavy, like a backpack full of stones. I had turned off the cameras, deleted the videos, paid the housekeeper and thanked her for the work, without giving many details. I thought everything was closed, that I would swallow the guilt, learn from the mistake, and move on as if nothing had happened. But secrets don't die easily. They stay buried, waiting for the right time to resurrect. It was Thursday night. Ricardo had gone out for a work dinner, or at least that's what he had said, and I was alone at home, lying on the couch with a glass of wine I wasn't really drinking, just holding, because holding something gave me the illusion of control. The phone vibrated. Unknown number. My stomach tightened. That instinctive tightening you feel when something is about to go wrong and your body knows before your head. I opened the message. "Hi. It's the housekeeper. Sorry to bother, but you should see this." My heart jumped. I typed quickly, fingers slipping on the screen. "See what?" The ellipsis blinked. She was typing, stopping, typing again, like someone hesitating before dropping a bomb. And then came the message. "He is faithful. Yes, you were right about that. But I think you should worry about something else." The air left my lungs. What else? More ellipsis, more waiting, each second seeming like an hour. And then she sent it. A screenshot. The image took a few seconds to load. Those seconds that seem eternal when you're holding your phone and your heart is beating so loud you hear the pulse in your ear. And when the image appeared, the ground disappeared beneath me. It was a screenshot of WhatsApp. His phone. I recognized the wallpaper he used, the interface I had seen 1,000 times, and at the top of the conversation, the name, Sophia, my sister. My stomach dropped like an elevator without a cable. Vision blurred at the edges. The wine glass slipped from my hand and fell on the floor, staining the red carpet. But I didn't move. I read the messages. They were old, dated months before our wedding. Some with timestamps from dawn, others in the middle of the afternoon, Conversations that seemed everyday at first glance, but had that tone, that unmistakable tone of intimacy. Ricardo, you disappeared yesterday. Is everything okay? Sophia, I am. Just needed some time. You know how it is. Ricardo, I know, but it gets weird when you disappear like that. Sophia, weird how? Ricardo, like something's missing. I read again, 3 times, 4, 5. They weren't explicit. There was no I love you or heart or compromising photo, but they were clear. The kind of conversation that has history behind it, shared memories, a closeness that wasn't casual friendship. I scrolled, shaking, and more messages appeared. Sophia, we shouldn't have let it get where it got. Ricardo, I know, but I don't regret it. Sophia, me neither. But now? Ricardo, now we move forward, as friends, as it always was. Sophia, friends. Ricardo, friends. The last message in the thread was his. Take care, Soph. Soph. He called her Soph, the nickname only family used. The nickname I used. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Without warning, without a chance to prepare. The housekeeper sent another message. I shouldn't have seen this. But his phone was unlocked on the table while I was cleaning, and the notification appeared. I thought you deserved to know. Sorry if I did wrong. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold the phone. I got up from the couch, staggered to the kitchen, opened the faucet, threw cold water on my face, on my neck, on my hands, as if I could wash it away, erase it, go back 5 minutes in time. But I couldn't. There was no way to not know anymore. He had been with my sister before me, and no one had ever told me. The test I set up had worked, just not how I planned. He didn't cheat on me with a stranger. He betrayed me with the person I trusted most in the world. And now, standing there in the kitchen, dripping water on the floor, with the refrigerator hum as my only company, I realized it didn't matter if it was before or after our I do. What mattered was that I slept next to him for 8 years, without knowing he had already slept next to her. Scene 9. I waited for him to arrive. Sitting on the couch, with my phone in hand and the screen still lit showing the screenshot. Waiting like someone waiting for a sentence. The wine-stained carpet beside me, the silence of the house so heavy I could hear the tick-tock of the kitchen clock cutting through the air. When the key turned in the lock, my heart raced. He came in smiling. That casual smile, tired, of someone who had a long day but is happy to get home. He dropped his briefcase at the entrance, took off his jacket, and then saw me. The smile died. He knew me well enough to know when something was wrong. And that night, everything was wrong. Are you okay? Low voice, cautious, like someone approaching a wounded animal. I didn't answer. I just raised my phone and showed the screen. He stood still, eyes fixed on the image. And I saw, with the cruel clarity of someone looking for signs, the exact moment he understood what it was. His face paled, jaw locked. Breathing changed. Where did you get this? His voice came out hoarse, almost a whisper. Far does it matter? Silence. He ran his hand through his hair, nervous, that gesture he always made when trying to buy time to think. We need to talk, he said. Now, you want to talk? My voice came out louder than I wanted, harder, like breaking glass. He took a step toward me. Let me explain. Explain what, Ricardo? I got up from the couch. Now I was standing, face to face with him, and for the first time in years I felt I didn't recognize him. Explain that you were with my sister, that you had something and no one ever thought I deserved to know. It was before you, he said it quickly, defensive, as if that solved everything. Before? I gave a dry laugh, without humor. Does that change anything, Ricardo? Does it change the fact that I spent 8 years sharing family dinners with both of you without knowing you had a past? Does it change the fact that you never told me? He lowered his head. I didn't know how to tell you. Then don't tell. My voice trembled. Stay quiet, right? Leave the idiot here in the dark, thinking everything's fine while you exchange looks at the Christmas table. It was never like that. He raised his voice for the first time, frustrated, desperate. It was a matter of weeks. It ended badly. It was confusing, uncomfortable, and when it ended, we decided to move forward. And then I met you. He took another step, hands extended as if wanting to hold me. When I met you, everything changed. She became the past right away, I swear, but I didn't know how to tell you without ruining everything between you and her, without making you look at your own sister differently every time you saw her. But it ruined it, I shouted, and the word echoed through the empty room. It ruined it, Ricardo. Because now I can't look at her without thinking about this. I can't look at you without seeing her beside you. I can't sleep in this bed without imagining if it was you who chose her first, and then settled for me. It wasn't like that. He tried to approach again, but I backed away. Don't touch me. The voice came out low. Cutting. He stopped, hands fallen by his side, red eyes. And for the first time, I saw defeat in him. I love you, he said, voice breaking. I always have. Since the day I crossed that street in the rain to give you my jacket, nothing that happened before you matters, because you're what matters. I wanted to believe. God, how I wanted to. But there was a crack in the middle of my chest that didn't close with beautiful words. You lied, I said, more to myself than to him. Not with your mouth, but you lied by staying silent. You lied letting me live a life where I didn't know an important part of who you were. And that doesn't disappear with I love you. I grabbed my purse, the keys, the phone. Where are you going? I don't know. And it was true. I didn't know. I just knew I couldn't stay there. I opened the door. The cold night air entered, cutting through the hot and stuffy room. And before leaving, I turned to him one last time. You know what's worst, Ricardo? It's not that you were with her. It's that I set up an idiotic test to prove you were cheating on me and discovered that the betrayal was already there, just invisible, made of silences, and those are the worst. I closed the door and left him alone with the truth he tried to hide for 8 years. Scene 10. I spent days trying to decide what to do. I thought about calling my sister and screaming. I thought about telling my parents. I thought about posting everything on social media, exposing, destroying. I thought about cheating back, making him feel what I was feeling. But revenge is fire that burns whoever lights it. I stayed in the shower for almost an hour, letting the hot water burn my neck, as if it could wash away the anger. But anger doesn't come off with soap. The truth is, I was angry at everyone. At him, for not telling. At her, for being with him, knowing I would meet him later. At myself, for having set up that ridiculous test. But more than anger, I felt shame. Shame of not having been enough for him to tell the truth. Shame of having suspected when he was being loyal. Shame of carrying a marriage that started with a lie, even if it was a lie of omission. And that's when I understood. The problem wasn't just him. It was me, too. Because when we test someone's love, what ends up being tested is our own limit of enduring the truth. Scene 11. I stayed at my best friend's house for 3 days. 3 days lying on her sofa bed, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like someone else's fabric softener, staring at the ceiling and trying to decide if there was still an us, or if I had spent the last 8 years building a house on quicksand. She didn't ask questions, just left hot tea on the coffee table, closed the door carefully, and gave me the only gift that mattered at that moment: silence. But on the 3rd day, the silence started to weigh. Because silence is also a choice, and I was tired of letting other people choose for me. Ricardo had sent 17 messages. I counted. Not because I wanted to respond, but because looking at that number, 17, made me feel something that wasn't just emptiness. He didn't beg, didn't send a long text full of flimsy excuses, just wrote things like, "Are you okay? Please answer me. I know I was wrong. I just wanted to know if you're safe." And the last message, sent in the early morning of the 3rd day, simply said, "I love you, and I'll wait as long as you need." I looked at that sentence for a long time. I tried to feel anger. I tried to feel disgust, but what I felt was tiredness. A tiredness so great it seemed to weigh on my bones, because the truth is, I was also tired of myself. Tired of being the woman who sets up fidelity tests. Tired of being the woman who runs away in the middle of the night. Tired of being the woman who feels ashamed of having believed, as if trusting someone were weakness and not courage. I thought about revenge. Of course I did. I imagined sending the screenshot in the family group, exposing everything at Sunday dinner, seeing my sister's face crumble, seeing my mother speechless, seeing him having to explain the inexplicable in front of everyone. I imagined cheating back, downloading a dating app, meeting someone, spending the night with a stranger just to feel that I could also hurt, that I also had power. I imagined disappearing, taking an Uber to the airport, buying the first available ticket, redoing my life in another city where no one knew my name or the story I carried. But every time I closed my eyes and tried to see myself doing any of these things, the same question came back. And then what? After revenge, what would be left? Satisfaction, or just more shame, more pain, and the certainty that I had lost myself along the way? Because revenge is fire, and fire burns everything, including the person who lights it. On the fourth day, I woke up with a strange clarity. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't forgiveness. It was just decision. I was going back home, not because everything was resolved, but because I needed to look at him and say, with my own voice, who I chose to be after all this. I arrived at the apartment in the middle of the afternoon. The key turned in the lock with the same sound as always, but everything seemed different, as if the house had aged 3 years in 3 days. Ricardo was sitting on the couch. Not in the office, not in the kitchen, but there, on the couch, as if he were waiting. Maybe he was. He got up when he saw me. Red eyes, unshaven, wrinkled shirt. He looked smaller than I remembered. "You came back?" he said, voice hoarse. "I did." Silence. That kind of silence that hurts, but is necessary. I dropped my purse on the floor and breathed deeply. "We need to talk. Really, this time." He nodded, sat down again, slowly, like someone afraid of breaking something. I stayed standing. I needed to stay standing. "I thought a lot in the last few days," I began. "I thought about exposing you. I thought about disappearing. I thought about making you feel what I'm feeling. But you know what I realized?" He looked at me, waiting. "I realized that revenge doesn't cure anything. It just spreads the pain. And I don't want to be another person spreading pain around just because I'm bleeding inside." My voice trembled. But I didn't stop. "You lied, Ricardo. Not with your mouth, but with silence. And that hurt me in a way I don't know if it will heal. Every time I look at you, I see her. Every time I see her, I see you. And that doesn't disappear overnight." He lowered his head. "I know." "No," I said, more firmly. "You don't know. Because you didn't spend 8 years thinking you knew someone, only to discover there was a huge piece of the story no one told you." I breathed deeply. My hands were shaking, but I closed them into fists. But I was also wrong. He raised his eyes, surprised. I set up that idiotic test because I no longer trusted myself, because I preferred to test you than to ask directly what was wrong. And that is also a lie. A lie I told. Tears ran down my face, but I didn't wipe them. "So here's what we're going to do," I continued, voice firm despite the tears. "I'm not going to pretend everything's fine. I'm not going to smile in photos as if nothing happened. I'm not going to sleep next to you and pretend it doesn't hurt." He stood up. "So you're leaving?" "I don't know yet. Raw honesty. No makeup. But if I stay, it will be with boundaries. Couples therapy. Total transparency. No changed passwords. No omissions. No, I didn't know how to tell you. And if you can't do that, then we end it here. With dignity." He took a step toward me. "I'll do whatever you want," he said, voice breaking. "Anything. I swear. It's not about what I want, Ricardo. It's about what I deserve. And I deserve someone who doesn't hide pieces of their own life for fear of losing me. Because you know what's worse than losing you. It's living with you and losing myself. Silence. He nodded slowly, tears running down his face, too. I understand. I went to the bedroom, opened the closet, got a small suitcase, not the big one, just the small one, and started putting some clothes inside. Ricardo appeared at the door. Are you leaving? His voice was pure panic. No, I replied, without looking at him. I'm just packing a suitcase, because I need to know I can leave if I need to. I need to know I have a choice. I closed the suitcase. The sound of the zipper running was like a straight line passing through my chest, dividing the before from the after. I left the suitcase on top of the bed, ready, visible, like a reminder. I turned to him. I'm staying, for now, but not for you, for me, because I need to know if this can still be fixed. And if it can't, I'm leaving knowing I tried, that I didn't run, that I didn't destroy myself just because someone hurt me. He nodded, hands shaking. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me, I replied. This isn't a gift. It's a second chance you'll have to deserve every day. And if you fail again, I'm not coming back. That night, we slept in the same bed, but with distance. A respectful, painful, necessary distance. And for the first time in weeks, I slept whole. Not because everything was resolved, but because I had chosen, not out of fear, not out of anger, not out of revenge, out of respect for myself, and that, just that, was already a victory. Scene 12. I scheduled coffee with my sister. Neutral place, public, no drama. She arrived with red eyes. She already knew. Did he tell you? No, I found out. Heavy silence. It was before you two, she said, low voice. I didn't know it would become what it became. When I realized it was too late to talk. You could have talked. I know. Why didn't you? She looked at her own hands. Because I was ashamed. And because I didn't want to ruin your happiness. But it ruined it. She nodded. Tears fell. Sorry. I didn't say it's okay. Because it wasn't. But I also didn't scream. Because I realized the pain was mine. And I was going to decide what to do with it. I need some time away from you too, I said. She understood. And I left that coffee with the feeling that, for the first time, I was in control of my own story. Scene 13. Today, 3 months later, I still sleep next to him. Not because everything's resolved, but because I'm choosing, day by day, what I want. Some nights are difficult. I see her face when he kisses me. I feel the weight of the lie when he sleeps with his back to me. But other nights are light. And on those nights, I remember that healing isn't a straight line. It's zigzag. It's 2 steps forward and 1 back. I opened the bedroom windows today. Let the cold wind in, carry away the old smell of the apartment, and I breathed deeply. I deleted the message I had written to him that night, full of anger and hurt, because I don't want to be the person who writes in anger anymore. I learned that when you try to test someone's love, what ends up being tested is your own limit of enduring the truth. And I learned that forgiving isn't forgetting. It's choosing not to let the wound define who you are. Whether I'll stay or not, I still don't know. But I know that today, for the first time in months, I feel whole. And that's already a beginning. Ending This Is My Story. It doesn't have a happy ending, nor a sad ending. It has a real ending. Because life isn't a romance, and betrayal has no script. What it has is choice. And I chose not to lose myself to understand others. Mistakes. I chose to open the windows, let the cold air in, and breathe again. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough for now.